right into this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt like your team is hustling incredibly hard, but somehow pulling in completely different directions, well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're unpacking one of Peter Drucker's absolute best insights. It's a timeless management philosophy that flips the script from just managing people to actually empowering them with a shared vision. We're going to dive into management by objectives and self-control. And as you'll see, genuine expertise, if left totally unchecked, can actually be the exact thing holding your whole organization back. So ask yourself this, and really think about it. Does your team know how it builds the cathedral? When your people sit down at their desks, pop open their laptops, or step out onto the floor every single morning, do they genuinely understand how their daily nitty-gritty tasks feed right into the ultimate goals of the company? Or, are they just kind of ticking boxes? Because that right there, that's the literal difference between a random group of people doing chores and a deeply unified, high-performing team. Okay, to really wrap our heads around this, let's look at a classic parable Drucker loved. Imagine three stonecutters doing the exact same job on a massive construction site. Somebody walks up to them and asks, "Hey, what are you doing?" The first worker, barely looking up, just says, "I'm earning a living." The second worker, who is hyper-focused, hammering away, says, "I'm doing the absolute best stonecutting job in the entire county." But the third worker, he actually pauses, looks up with this real vision in his eyes and says, "I am building a cathedral." And it's pretty obvious the third person has the mindset of a true manager, right? He sees the big picture, but let's zoom in on those other two for a second. Because here is the wild twist. You probably think the guy just clocking in for a paycheck is the biggest issue, but he isn't. The first worker is totally fine. He wants an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and he delivers exactly that. The third worker is our visionary. But that second worker, the highly dedicated expert striving to be the absolute best stonecutter in the county, believe it or not, he is actually your biggest problem. Sounds crazy, counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why on earth would your most dedicated craftsman be a liability? Well, it all boils down to this brilliant little warning from Drucker. Look, mastery is absolutely crucial. No company survives without top-tier skills, for sure. But there's a massive, massive danger when a true professional turns their specific skill into an end in itself. They might genuinely believe they're achieving something amazing, crafting the most perfectly smooth, flawless stone ever seen. But in reality, they're literally just polishing stones. If that perfect stone doesn't actually fit into the wall of the cathedral, or if making it perfect slows down the rest of the crew, their expertise isn't helping. It's just causing team friction, creating bottlenecks, and wasting so much energy, all because they are totally disconnected from the actual goal. So how exactly do incredibly smart, super talented folks end up just polishing stones all day? Well, a huge part of the root cause is something Drucker called misdirection. This is this crazy phenomenon where subordinates totally misinterpret a boss's casual remarks, personal quirks, or just offhand questions as these highly planned, significant directives. And unfortunately, the corporate hierarchy makes this exponentially worse. Because when you're the boss, your team is watching you like a hawk. They're constantly trying to decode what you really want, and honestly, they often come to completely wrong conclusions. Let's look at how this plays out in the real world. Say a manager sincerely believes that team morale and human relations are, without a doubt, the most important things. But they kind of want to look like a tough, practical business person. So every time they call someone into the office, they immediately ask about cutting costs. Or maybe they just despise filling out accounting forms, so they promote the person with the cleanest paperwork just to avoid dealing with it themselves. What does the team actually hear? They definitely don't hear, "My boss values our morale." Nope. They hear, "The only thing that actually matters around here is money and flawlessly filling out paperwork." The manager's true intentions get completely lost, and suddenly you have a team working incredibly hard on the entirely wrong priorities. Now, when managers eventually catch themselves doing this, their first instinct is usually to start heavily policing their own behavior. They try to carefully script every single hand gesture and overthink every casual water cooler chat to avoid sending the wrong signal. But Drucker points out that this is just a terrible idea. It makes the manager look super stiff and totally unnatural. It basically turns a solid, authentic working relationship into this complete nightmare of awkward misunderstandings. Employees just end up thinking, "God help us, the old man read a management book. We used to know what he wanted, and now we just have to guess." So, the big takeaway here is that we've absolutely got to ditch these behavioral gymnastics. Actually, scratch that. You just can't fix team alignment by smiling more or carefully curating your small talk. The real solution, the only one that actually works long-term, is building a crystal clear structure of carefully aligned objectives. Every single job, and especially the job of every manager, has to be deliberately pointed right at the goals of the whole company. We need a system where goals flow directly from that overarching vision. That way, translating intent doesn't rely on someone trying to decode their boss's mood on a Tuesday morning.
All right, so how do we actually build this thing? According to Drucker, to completely wipe out that misdirection, every manager's objectives have to explicitly nail down three core things. First, what specific results is their unit actually supposed to produce? Second, and this is the secret sauce for breaking down those nasty organizational silos, what contribution do they give to other units? And third, what contribution do they expect from others to hit their own goals? See how that instantly forces teamwork? It's not just about what you're doing in your own little bubble. It's this integrated web of mutual support. This is what guarantees that the specialist stonecutter knows exactly how their perfect stone is going to fit right into the next team's wall.
And getting these objectives locked in brings us to the ultimate goal of Drucker's whole philosophy. The point of having these clear objectives is absolutely not so the boss has a better whip to crack. No way. It's to replace management by boss pressure with management by self-control. Think about it. When you manage by pressure, you're constantly forcing motivation from the outside. It is so exhausting and wildly inefficient. But self-control, that's internal. It is truly empowering. It means the employee knows exactly what the destination is, and they grab the steering wheel themselves to drive their own performance.
But listen, you can't just tell someone to have self-control. You've got to actually equip them for it. A team member needs three specific things to manage themselves. They need a deep, big-picture understanding of the whole company's goals. That's the cathedral. They need crystal clear knowledge of their own specific objectives. Those are their stones. And, crucially, they absolutely must have direct, unfiltered access to their own performance data. When someone has that data right in their hands, they don't have to wait around for some annual review or for a boss to yell at them to know if they're veering off track. They can correct their own course. They can, finally, direct themselves.
Which brings us right to the finish line, and a pretty provocative question. I want you to take a hard look at your own organization through this lens. If your people don't have clear, tightly aligned objectives, and if they don't have the data they need to exercise true self-control, do you actually have a team? Or do you just have a group of isolated stonecutters perfectly polishing stones right into oblivion? It's definitely a challenging question, but honestly, answering it is step one toward finally building your cathedral.